What up? This is H1. We're gonna be running it back with another episode talking about chess knowledge, chess wisdom, chess understanding again. And today, first of all, just to get everybody in here, I want to talk about how to destroy the Sicilian Defense knight-or variation. And then secondly, the main point of this video is to show you how to play with the isolated e-pawn position. It just wasn't attractive enough to probably put in the thumbnail or a title, but if it's in there, then hey, you know, I'm sacrificing my views to teach you how to play chess. So let's get into it right quick. Let's get into the main thing. In this game, we are the white pieces and our opponent is Jan Nepo. Jan Nepo, he was playing the black pieces and he lost horribly. Let's get into it right quick. Let's figure out what exactly happened here. E4, C5, and let me stop forgetting my stick. Anyway, E4, C5, C5 initiates the Sicilian defense in chess. If you didn't know that, now you do. After C5, knight to F3, D6, and then we have this next move, D4. What does D4 initiate? Well, D4 initiates the open variation of the Sicilian defense. C takes on D4, knight takes on D4, and then we have this next move, knight to F6, putting tabs on this pawn on E4. Now, I know there's a question out there in the comments in one of my previous videos, why do I do both boards? Well, you can decide on if you want to look at the digital board that's up here above me, I don't know, somewhere up here, or if you want to look at this old school board where I already know most of you that was in school, that went to your chess club, you're more in tune with this board than this board, but you know, I'm trying to appease every single audience. My bad for being gracious enough to do that. Now, after this move, knight to F6, attacking this pawn, we're gonna defend very easily, and then we got this move A6. And you know what A6 initiates? A6 initiates the knight-or variation of the Sicilian defense. This is a whole nother beast, very sharp. I get it. Most of us hate it, but we have to play against it, especially if you want to play these exciting variations against the Sicilian defense, just to make sure they know their stuff. Now, after A6, bishop to D3, E5, attacking our knight. Knight has to go to E2. Well, it doesn't have to go to E2. This is just a variation that we're getting into to go through the main point of this video. Knight to C6, castle kingside, bishop to E6, and let me just tell you, Black's main goal, they want to do this move D5 because when they do this move D5 and explode the position, they're usually good after that. They can play a very wonderful game. And that's kind of a key thing that you need to keep in mind when you are playing the Sicilian defense. Wait a minute, is that sound on? That sound better be on. Yeah, better be on. Anyway, after this move, bishop to E6, F4, and then the party started. The party started because this pawn is putting pressure on this pawn on E5. And this will just be a regular position. Our work is gonna be open on this F file. We might do this move F5 too and just push pawns on the king side and don't even care about what the opponent is doing on the queen side or in the center. You never know. The surprises can come from anywhere. It seems like with the Sicilian too, you can play anything. I've seen there was a Bone Cloud variation. If you want me to go over that game, and this was a real tournament game, just put it in the comments down below. After this move F4, E takes on F4, knight takes on F4, putting pressure on this bishop on E6, and then we have this move knight to E5, and this is the isolated E-pawn variation that I wanted to go over here. Now, let me just give you a few details before you go away somewhere else, all right? Don't stop getting bored, okay? Listen up, this is really important. This is really important. This pawn on E4 is taking care of the light squares because this is isolated E-pawn variation. And what does it mean when I talk about an isolated E-pawn position? Well, there are no pawns that can protect this pawn on E4, which makes it a little bit more vulnerable to be attacked, especially in the endgame. But since there are a whole bunch of pieces still on the board, we still have all of our minor pieces, our major pieces. Yeah, we can get jiggy with this because we get a little bit more activity. There's going to be a lot more tactics and sharper positions when we have an isolated e-pawn. And maybe, just maybe, we can attack the dang king if the king ever castles on the king side. And that might happen here in this position. After this move, knight to e5, it seems pretty good. They're thwarting our pawn that's on e4. It can't be pushed up. And the knight is on a good central square controlling, it's controlling everything right now. It's controlling all of our pieces. And that's why we have to keep on making our pieces better than what they are. And that's why it's really good to follow the principles in the opening. Developing your pieces, castling your king, getting your rooks connected, controlling the center, all those things forever stays the same. Knight to e5, bishop to e3, bishop to e7, and then what do we have next? We got h3, guarding this square on g4, making sure there's no knights that can hop into these squares and attack our bishop on e3. We do not want to give away our bishop advantage, especially since we have the isolated e-pawn, because our bishop is going to be really good attacking pieces on the king somewhat. You know, I'm not trying to tell you any secrets that happens here. All I'm saying is it's going to get real. All right. h3 into the position, castle king side, and then we have this move king to h1 to get out of all the potential checks that can happen along this diagonal here. And one thing that I wanted to talk about in this position, especially after queen to d7, bishop e4, is whenever you see a battery along this diagonal here and your opponent's pieces is targeting this pawn on h3, do not just know that your opponent is probably trying to sacrifice here. If this knight wasn't here, this bishop could sacrifice and they can draw the position very quickly. We don't want that stuff to happen. So just keep that in mind when you are trying to like attack your opponent in chess or you're trying to do your own plan. Now, after this move, bishop to d4 here, bishop d4, rook a to e8, all these pieces look pretty ridiculous in this little cubby here, right? They're not really doing anything, but it does look really threatening. But until something big happens like d5, nothing is going on exactly for now. Now, queen d2, bishop to d8, trying to get this piece a little bit better along this diagonal. Maybe doing this move bishop to a5, or trying to do this move bishop to b6. Like if this bishop wasn't along this diagonal, that would be a really good diagonal for this bishop to be at instead of on e7. Now, let's move on. Rook a to e1, rook a to e1, knight to c6, bishop to f2, and the knight goes back to e5 and bishop goes back to d4 because, you know, grandmasters love tickling each other. And then we have this next move, b5, just trying to change up the position. You don't want to do the same moves 3 times because that would be threefold repetition. Our opponent did this move b5 to do b4 to move this knight somewhere else and change it up. Now, we want to do a3, prevent the opponent from ever doing b4 and trying to control the position, get their own initiative into the game. After a3, queen to c6, queen to f2, preventing our opponent from ever putting their bishop on b6 and trading off our only good piece. I mean, that bishop is putting in work right there at this present moment. But there is a little bit of a deeper meaning to this move, queen to f2. It's not just making sure that there's no trades along this diagonal. Queen b7, queen g3, and we're slowly moving our pieces to the king side and trying to get some attack going on since, I mean, we are controlling this f5 square. And if we can get like a knight combination on f5 attacking this g7 pawn, there's a lot of checkmate threats that can happen in this position. But since we did this move queen to g3, our opponent took the opportunity to do bishop to b6, but that's why we did knight takes on e6. After knight takes on e6, the opponent had to do rook takes on e6. That was like the only option, but they fall into a little bit of trouble, just a little bit. They were supposed to capture with the rook, but instead they captured with the pawn, which led to this trade, bishop takes on e5, instead of trading with the bishop. Bishop takes on e5, d takes on e5, queen takes on e5, and this queen seems like it's in a little bit of trouble. It's out there. It could be attacked by multiple different pieces. There could be moves like knight to d7, bishop c7, which did happen here, and we moved our queen to a safer square, which is queen to g5. The only problem is our pieces is a little bit active. We got an extra c pawn. We're doing pretty well in this game of chess, especially with our isolated e pawn. It's actually guarding all of black's pieces. They're not really doing anything. The only active piece that they have is this bishop on c7. And then they did a really bad move, which was h6. attacking the queen. You might be thinking, isn't this a forcing move, h1? Do you always talk about forcing moves and making sure that you get the initiative, and then, you know, you can do this and that and all these tactics and make sure you're in control of the position? Well, with pushing a pawn in front of your king, you're allowing yourself to have weaknesses into the position. And this big weakness right here on g6 is astronomical, all right? There's nothing that's gonna be getting this queen out of here at this present moment. And it's so powerful that the opponent already has a threat of doing e5 and trying to do some checkmating sequences with queen going to h7 after this knight moves. That's why Black tried to guard against everything with this move, bishop to e5. But I guess they didn't see ahead enough. They didn't see this move, rook takes on f6, sacrificing the rook for the knight. And the weird part is, Black can't do nothing. G takes on f6 is illegal because the queen is gonna be attacking the king. We don't wanna put ourselves in check or let your opponent put themselves in check. That's illegal. Rook takes on f6, queen takes on e8, game over. That's something that you do not wanna see in the game. Bishop takes on f6 is basically the only logical move, but after e5, you understand why white is losing. e5 gets the job done because of this diagonal of the bishop-queen combo. At first, that bishop was looking like a little pawn, but it leveled up a little bit, you know what I mean? It's doing its thing right now at this present moment after e5. It's so weird how when you push up a pawn and then a piece becomes powerful, that's when the opponent realizes, oh, that was actually a really good piece right there. Oh, so why did I do these silly moves at this present moment? Why did I give away this pawn here? After e5, the best move for Black is actually doing bishop takes on e5, but instead we have this move, rook to d8. And yes, we got the sequence of moves, queen to h7, checking the king, king moved out the way, and then we have a bishop to g6, king moves here, pawn takes on f6, king takes on f6, and then finally we have the last move, knight to e4. This isn't checkmate, but this is a very losing position. If king goes to e7, queen takes here, rook goes here, only move, queen takes there, that is checkmate on the board. And we know we'd be celebrating checkmate. We'd be like salsa dancing in checkmate. I don't care what it is, we're good because grandmasters really don't allow the opponent to get checkmate all the time. And so yeah, we're gonna be dancing at that present moment. We're gonna be like salsa dancing. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Hey! Hey! All right, that's enough of me dancing. If the king goes to e5 now, then we have this discovered check, knight to c5, the rook is attacking the king moves, we take the queen, and it's game over there. And there's really not another move that the Black king can do. I mean, they could do this, queen takes on e4, but then we just take the queen and we win the game. We congratulate the opponent, set up the pieces like, how do they do it? How do they do it? You set up the pieces like this so that it tells the DGT board who won the game, which was the white pieces when you put it on light squares, and then you shake hands, give good sportsmanship, and they watch my channel, Chess Knowledge with H1. Now, if you like this, if you got the tips that you needed to understand what are isolated e-pawn positions, make sure that you like the video, subscribe, and look at more of my videos. They give you the same thought process, the same tips that you need to get better at chess, to increase your rating the fastest way possible, all right? Thank you for listening. Keep on fighting till the end, staying focused in chess and in real life too, as I eat my ice cream.